students, I'm Aanchal Sharma, your educator. In this video, we are talking about the different models of communication. So communication is important, but there are different models that are used in communication. Like there can be linear model, there can be an interactive model, it can be a transactional model. So there are different models, and out of them I have picked up 3 or 4 models that are very important. We'll look at the advantages, disadvantages, and we'll be discussing these models of communication. These models will tell how communication happen and how the structure of communication looks like. So we'll discuss about the basic models that are the Aristotle model, Berlow's SMCR model, Shannon and Weaver, and then Lasswell's model and Osgood and Ascham's model. So these are few important models. Let us quickly see what these models are. Now let us discuss about Aristotle's model first. So Aristotle's model is a linear kind of model. It is the first model that we saw, and it's the most simplest type of model. This model talks about the effect it has created on the audience. The most important thing is the effect that is seen, and there is no feedback. So this is a model that is persuasive in nature, rhetorical in nature. So Aristotle developed this linear model of communication, and it's an oral communication model known as Aristotle's model of communication. This is considered as the first model of communication, and it was proposed way back in 300 BC. It is also considered as the most widely accepted model among all the communication models that we have. Aristotle's model is mainly focusing on the speaker and the speech that is there. It is broadly divided into 5 primary elements, and these 5 primary elements are asked in the paper as well. So the first is the speaker, then we have the speech, occasion, then we have the audience, and there should be an effect on the audience that are listening. So if there is a politician giving speech, what is the most important thing? The effect that he has on the people becomes the most important thing. So these are the 5 elements that are important. We have speech, we have the speaker, we have the speech, occasion. On the occasion in which he is talking, there should be audience present and there should be an effect created on them. So this is the model, and we see that there is no feedback. So this effect, yes, it is a kind of a feedback, but there is no feedback that is given to the speaker. So without any feedback, it is called as the linear model. It is linear in nature. It is why it is linear. There is no feedback. It is only the effect that is important. Hence, Aristotle's model is believed to be rhetorical in nature. He believed rhetoric is the study of communication and persuasion, and different messages or speech should be made for different audiences at different situations to have a desired results. This will establish nothing but a propaganda, right? So it is rhetorical in nature. Then some criticism is also there. So critics have said that there is no concept of feedback. It is linear in nature. The impression that you created on the people can be deceptive. So this becomes a criticism that we see. There is no concept of communication failure like noise and the barriers. So he never talked about noise and barriers that can also be there. So we need to focus on it. Maybe the effect is not created because of the noise, and there is no feedback. This model can only be used in the public speaking and never in any other situation. So these are the few criticisms. Then we have Berlow's SMCR model. Very important questions are asked from this model. So in 1960, David Berlow postulated Berlow's SMCR, which stands for the sender, the message, the channel, and the receiver. SMCR model of communication and he used Shannon and Weaver's model to make this model. So he is working on Shannon and Weaver's model, and he came up with his own model in 1960. He described factors affecting the individual components in the communication making and how you can make communication more efficient and effective. This model also focuses on encoding and decoding, which happens before the sender starts the message. So he is someone who started to talk about sending, and he's talking about encoding and decoding, about receiving and sending the messages. Berlow's model has 4 components described in his communication process. He talks about the sender, the message, the channel, and the receiver. And there are different factors that can affect all of them. So each component is affected by a number of factors. So these are the factors. The factors can affect the source. The source can be affected because of the skills they have, because of the attitudes they have, because of knowledge, social system, and culture. Similarly, the receiver will also be suffering from the same problems. There can be skills, what kind of skills they have, what kind of attitude, what kind of knowledge, social system, and culture do the sender belong from and the receiver belongs from. Then the message can be affected by what is the content, what are the elements, what is the treatment, what is the structure, what is the code of the message. So all of this will affect the message. Say for example, this person is well aware about English literature while this person is not, and he uses some code language or some jargon. So the message would become faulty, and the skill or maybe the attitude or the set of knowledge was different, so the communication can fail. So this is what Berlow is talking, that there are factors that can affect the elements also. Then channel can also be broken down into hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting. So SMCR, know the full forms also, the source, message, channel, and receiver. This is a model given by Berlow. Right, so there are some criticisms as well. So what are these criticisms? There is no concept of feedback that he has talked about. There is no consideration of it. There is no concept of noise that he's talking about. So he's not talking about barriers or noise. It's again a linear kind of model, and there is no two-way communication. Both the people must be similar according to the factors mentioned. So communication can only happen when the set of skills are same between the source and the receiver. It is also not talking about feedback or noise barriers. Then we have Shannon and Weaver model, which was used by Berlow. So Shannon and Weaver model of communication was created in 1948 when Claude Leward Shannon wrote the article A Mathematical Theory of Communication, and this became very important with Weaver. So Shannon was an American mathematician, whereas Weaver was a scientist, and they both collaborated their works and they wrote this model, and this model is also called as the mother of all models. This model is more technical than any other linear model that we have. So this model talks about the information source, that is the sender. There is message, there is the transmitter, that is the message sending, and then there are signals, then there is receiving, they will receive, you will decode it, and comes the destination. They are also talking about the noise, and they are also talking about the feedback. These are the two most important things. We have the sender, that is the source from where the message would start. The sender is someone who will start the channel. Then there is encoder, he is the transmitter, and he is encoding the message using different signals, binary messages, converting the messages, etc., so that it is understandable. Then there are different channels used. Then there is a decoder who is the receiver. Then we have someone who is receiving it. He is at the final destination, and then there is the noise. These are the physical disturbances, like in the environment, in people. It can be psychological, semantic, sociological, etc. So the concept of noise is there. So this is the advantage of this model. and it is talking how the noise can cause problem. This model takes communication in two ways because it is talking about feedback. It talks about the general communication. It talks about the two-way communication. Communication is taken by a very qualifiable model, that is the Shannon-Weaver model. There are some critics to this model as well. It can be applied more to interpersonal communication than to group communication. So it was seen that mostly we can apply it to interpersonal and not group because feedback is very important for them. The receiver plays the passive part, right, in the communication process, as the sender plays the primary part. Sender becomes more important. Feedback is taken as less important in comparison to the message sent by the sender. Sender, according to them, when they started to talk about it, was the most important person who should encode the message in the proper manner. The model is taken by some critics as misleading also because the nature of communication changes. Here only sender is important. Then comes the Lasswell's model of communication. So Lasswell's communication model was developed by the communication theorist Harold D. Lasswell in 1948. Lasswell's model of communication, also known as the action model or the linear model or the one-way model of communication, is regarded as one of the most influential linear models. Right? So this model talks about different questions that you can ask before you start to communicate. They said that if you ask questions like who is talking, who says what is the channel you are using, to whom you are talking, and what will be the effect, then the communication would always be correct. So there is a sender, there is a message, there is a medium or a media, there is a receiver, and there is what is the effect, which is the feedback. So Lasswell's model has 5 components, as I was telling you. These components are used as the analysis tool of evaluating any kind of communication process. This is why it becomes so important. These components are the questions to be asked to get the answer, and this will keep the communication going. These are like who, and then who is talking, that means the sender. This will control the analysis. Says what is the content? This is the content analysis. In which pattern, in which channel, which is the media? This is the media analysis. To whom you are talking? Who is the receiver? Who is the audience? This is the audience analysis. And with what effect? The feedback of the receiver. This is the effect analysis. The major criticism is also there, but so the criticism of this model is that it does not include feedback. It never talks about feedback. It is a linear kind of model and it ignores the possibility of noise that are the barriers. Without feedback, communication can go wrong. So Lasswell's model is very linear in nature and he never talks about anything else. So this model is also criticized for being too general and not including the other traditional aspects. So it says that it is too simple, hence it is too simplistic in nature and avoid other complex situations, other cultural barriers and traditional topics. Then comes Osgood and Escham's model. So this model tells that the decoder and the encoder can be reversed also. So the one who is encoding will interpret the message once when the feedback is given and will become the decoder as well. So this is the model. It's a dynamic model and it shows how the situation can change. It talks about the changing situation. The sender will one day will become, or at the other moment will become the receiver. So the one who is encoding the message will do decoding of the message also. There is no separate sender or receiver. Sender, receiver are the same person. They should know the art of interpretation. Assume communication to be circular in nature and feedback is very central to this model. So feedback is very important for them. For Osgood and Escham, he said that it is circular in nature. The communication is always happening in circular nature. The one who is encoding the message, he's fixing the message, he's starting the message, will send the message. the decoding would done and then feedback would be there. So again, after the interpretation and decoding of the message, the receiver will encode the message, formulate the message again, and this message will again be received by the sender. So this makes it in a circular nature. This model does not talk about the semantic noise and it assumes the movement of encoding and decoding. This can be a criticism, but of course, this model was a circular model, a transactional model, interactive model in itself. Why? Because we have the window of communication, and in this video the feedback becomes so important when the role of encoder and decoder are changing again and again. So I hope you understood. These were the few models that we discussed. There are few important things about each model that you should remember. So Aristotle's model is rhetorical in nature. He is talking about the art of rhetorics, how the effect on the audience is very important. Then we have Berlow's SMCR model. You should know that he is also not talking about feedback, but he's also talking about the elements and the other factors affecting that element. Then we have Shannon and Weaver. Then we have Lassfield's model, and the last we have a circular model, that is Osgood and Escham's model. Right? So I hope you like this video. If you have any doubt, you can write it in the comment section and I'll surely reply to you. Thank you.